He said the smell of the heather, the barking of the dogs, and finally that capture of the rascal the fox. And then sit down in front of a roaring fire, sipping a tall brandy. Why, to me, that is happiness. The Frenchman said, for me, happiness is to take a beautiful woman to a wonderful restaurant down the Champs-Élysées for a wonderful meal, and then to take her back to my apartment for you know what. That makes me happy. The Russian was a little bit different. He said, for me, happiness is to be sitting in my little apartment in Moscow reading Pravda with my little Alexis on my knee, to hear big banging at the front door, to see 4 KGB come in and scream at me, are you Sergei Gromolko? For me, happiness is to say Sergei is on the second floor. I'm sure all of you, having eaten this wonderful meal, have a problem with diet. I know I do. Recently, HEB had a sale on Cadbury's milk chocolate, which I love, and it hasn't helped my diet at all. But I want to talk about Harry Brown. Harry Brown had a problem with his weight. He was obese, according to his doctor, and he had tried everything. And he even salivated when he saw wonderful food. Harry was getting very depressed. He didn't know what to do. He couldn't get a date. So he decided that he was going to get help from his minister. He asked his minister, can you help me? I'm very overweight. I've tried everything. For me, exercise means extra fries. I just don't know what to do anymore. Can you help me? So the minister said, of course I can help you. But do you have a plan of action? He said, no, I don't. He said, well, tomorrow morning, I want you to get up at 6:45. Set your alarm for 6:45. Get up, put your running shoes on, your running shorts, and your t-shirt, and wait for 7 o'clock. Well, that's what he did. The next morning, his alarm went off, and he got up, he put in his running togs, and he waited 15 minutes. At 7 o'clock, he heard ding dong, the bell, the door opened, and there was the most beautiful woman he'd ever seen. And she said, the minister said, if you can catch me, you can have me. Well, he took after her, but he had no chance. He tried, he ran, but nothing. He tried this every day for the next 2 weeks. And finally, he decided, you know what, I'm going to do a little bit extra. I'm going to go on a treadmill, and I'm really going to lose weight. But 11 weeks later, he was starting to feel pretty good. He'd lost a lot of weight, and now he felt ready for this lady at the door. He waited, ding dong, the door opened, and there stood a large lady. She said, the minister said, if you can catch me, if I can catch you, I can have you. Now, I want to tell you about Luigi. Luigi is my barber. Luigi is obviously from Italy. And Luigi said to me, what plans do you have for the summer? I said, well, I'm going to Italy. He said, don't go to Italy. It's the worst place in the world. Don't go there. He said, well, I'm going. I've already booked. I have a ticket. I've paid my deposit, everything. Then he said to me, what city are you going to? I said, I'm going to Rome. He said, oh God, Rome is the worst city in Italy. Don't go there. I said, well, I already booked. You don't understand. He said, so what hotel are you staying? I said, I'm staying at the Rome Hilton. He said, the Rome Hilton, it's the worst hotel in Italy. Don't go there. I said, well, I'm going. So then he said to me, tell me, Mr. Jerry, why are you going to Italy? I said, well, I'm going for a convention, but between you and me, I want to meet the Pope. He said, you can't just go to Italy and meet the Pope. You have to know somebody. I said, well, I'm going. I've made up my mind. Well, 10 weeks later, I returned for another haircut. And Luigi said to me, "Well, Mr. Jerry, how was Italy?" I said, "Unbelievable. Finest country in the world." And he said, "How was Rome?" I said, "Finest city, friendliest people in the world." And the Hilton, best hotel. He said, "Don't tell me you met the Pope." I said, "As a matter of fact, I did." He said, "You met the Pope?" I said, "Yeah. I was sitting in Basilica Square. Actually, I was standing in Basilica Square amongst 3,000 people. And the Pope came on the balcony and he seemed to look straight at me. I got the feeling he was making eye contact with me. And I didn't realize he was really doing that because in 1 or 2 minutes, 2 of his aides came towards me and assisted me upstairs to the balcony. And there I was, just 2 feet away from El Papa. He beckoned me, I leaned forward, and the Pope said, "That's the worst haircut I ever seen in my life." Now here is a missing person. Let's call him Bob. He was a sales rep. Bob was complaining. He said, "My wife for 15 years has gone missing." And the cop said, "Well, can you give me a description?" He said, "Well, what do you mean?" He said, "Well, how tall was she?" He said, "I think she was 5 foot, maybe 5'1", I'm not sure." He said, "Well, what did she weigh?" He said, "I'm not sure." She was kind of middle of the road. And he said, "Well, what color was her hair?" He said, "I'm not sure." He said, "Well, what color her eyes?" I said, "I think brown, I'm not sure." And then he said, "Well, how did she disappear?" He said, "Well, she took my truck." He said, "You took your truck? Can you tell me what was in the truck?" He said, "It was a 2018 Grand Limited 4x4, heavy bore, heavy V8 engine, LED lighting, backup and front camera, loose high leather heated seats, climate control, air conditioning, sunroof, GPS navigation, satellite radio, alloy wheels." And he started to cry. He said, "Oh my God, my truck." And the cop said, "Don't worry, Bob, we'll find the truck for you." Has anybody ever called Uber? I had a recent experience with Uber. The driver arrived on time, and I actually normally sit in front, but he pointed to the back seats. I sat in the back seat, and he took off like a bat out of hell. So I tapped him on the shoulder because I wanted him to realize where I wanted to go. And when I tapped him on the shoulder, he screamed out loud. And we nearly had an accident. And I said, "I'm so sorry I tapped you on the shoulder. I was just trying to confirm that you knew where I was going." And he said, "You don't understand." He said, "For 25 years I've been working for funeral company, driving hearse. And when you tap me on my shoulder, well, you can imagine." And this is for those elderly gentlemen who like Ferraris. Let's call him insurance salesman. He drove out of the Ferrari dealership, and the wind blowing in his hair, oh, he was loving it. He was doing 100 miles an hour up the I-45, and suddenly behind him, he saw the dreaded lights. And he thought to himself, "You know what, this is a Ferrari, he'll never catch me." So he put his foot down, he was doing 120, 140, 150 miles an hour. And then he thought to himself, "You know what, this is crazy." So he pulled over to the side of the road. The cop caught up to him in a few seconds, and the cop said to him, "Look, I've got 10 minutes to go on my shift. I've got the whole weekend off. If you can give me one good reason why I shouldn't give you a ticket, I'll let you off the ticket." And the guy said, "Well, actually, 2 years ago, my wife ran off with a traffic cop, and I thought you were bringing him back." This is a story about a sex therapist. 2 elderly people, senior citizens, arrived at the sex therapist's office, and the guy said to him, "Actually, would you mind watching if we make love?" The sex therapist thought, "Well, that's a bit different for me." "Okay, do it." So they made love. They got off the couch, and the sex therapist said, I don't see anything wrong. And he charged them, and they went off. Well, for the next 4 weeks, they kept coming back, making love, and they asked me for the sex therapist to look at it, and he did. After a month, the sex therapist said, you know, I had enough of this. Tell me why you're doing this. He said, well, I'm not married to this lady, and she's not married to me. We cannot make love in her house or my house. And you only charge $100. Hilton charge $125, and I can load this off on my my insurance. I'm sure many of you go to old age homes or senior citizen homes, and we like to entertain them. And I found a young lady who was a hypnotist, and she told the people, you know what, I'm going to put you to sleep, but when I put you to sleep, you're going to do exactly what I tell you to do. So she started. There she was, swinging this gold watch backwards and forwards. And within a few seconds, they were fast asleep. And she said, you're going to do exactly what I tell you to do. Unfortunately, she dropped her gold watch and she said, shit. And it took 2 weeks for survey to clear up the mess. This is a story that takes place in England. Lover's Lane. This cop was going down Lover's Lane, and he saw a little black car parked on the side. He walked up to the window, and there was a young man sitting in the front. He tapped on the window. The man wound down the window, and he said to him, what are you doing? And the young man said, I'm reading a magazine. And he looked at the back and he saw a young girl. He said, what's she doing? She's filing her nails. So the cop was a bit unusual. He said, well, how old is she? He said, well, in 1 minute she's going to be 18. Work that one out. This is a story about a very unhappy salesman. He met a friend of his, and he told him, he said, I'm very distraught. I've tried everything, but I'm not good at anything I do. So the guy said, well, why are you so unhappy? He said, well, my first wife died. My second wife took off with another woman, took all our savings. My son's in prison for trying to kill me. My daughter got run over by a bus. My house was hit by a low-flying aircraft. And had I had my dog put down, and my dog says I have an incurable disease. And to cap it all, my business has just gone bust. So his friend said, well, what kind of business were you in? He said, I used to sell Lucky Charms. This is one of my favorite stories. A young lady got onto an aircraft with her baby. A man came to sit next to her. And he took one look at the baby and he said, oh my God, that is the ugliest baby I've ever seen. Well, you can imagine this new mother wasn't happy about this at all. And he said, madam, I've seen ugly, but that is ugly. The next thing, the air hostess came along and she realized what was going on. And she said, sir, I want you to go and sit in 34B. And she said, madam, I want you to relax. I'm going to bring you a nice cup of tea, and I'm going to bring you a banana for your monkey. Some of you may have heard of Neil Armstrong. I know I did. I remember listening to the lunar landing. And it said that when he landed on the moon, he said, that's one small step for man, one giant step for mankind. But when he got into the actual landing craft, he said, good luck, Mr. Gorski. And nobody ever knew what he was talking about. When Neil Armstrong gave a talk many years later, I think it was 26 years later, he actually explained who Mr. Gorski was. He knew by then that both Mr. and Mrs. Gorski had died, so he felt he could tell the story. He said, when I was a little boy in 1938,